Can you get a pro tenor saxophone for $2,000 that actually sounds any good? Well, this is the John Paul TS-860. It's their pro level sax, and I've been using it for the last few weeks to film all my Sax School lessons. Have a listen. So if you're pretty new on in your saxophone journey, you probably have heard of John Paul because they make great entry-level saxophones that aren't crazy expensive. I reviewed their AS400 entry-level alto a while back, and actually we just gave away one of their TS400 tenors at our Sax School Weekender. By the way, just before we dig into the review, because I wanted today to show you a bit more about this saxophone, give you a couple more playing demos, show you a couple of things I like and a couple of things I don't like about it. If you don't know about Sax School, so we run a huge community of saxophone learners called Sax School Online. We've got thousands of people learning with us. Right now there's a 14-day trial. So if you want to see how loads of tutor support and interaction with our community, as well as amazing lessons can help you progress, then grab the 14-day trial and give it a spin for yourself. I'll put the link down below. So I mentioned at the start this was a $2,000 saxophone. It's actually about $2,200, but guess what? That's probably half of what you pay for a Yamaha Pro saxophone and just a fraction of what you pay for a top-end Selmer or Yanagisawa. So I think it's unfair to compare it with these very expensive saxophones. But that being said, you're still getting a much better saxophone than the entry-level student saxophones from John Paul. So what's the big difference here? Well, really it comes down to the feel and the finish. I think this saxophone looks amazing. A lot of other people have talked about the engraving, and it is beautiful. I mean, there's engraving all over the saxophone, and it looks great. I particularly love the back of the bell here and up around the neck as well. Now I should just say I love to promote John Paul saxophones, not because I make any money from them whatsoever. I mean, they do send me these saxophones for free, but loads of our members do play these saxophones, and I'm particularly happy with their customer service. I'll tell you a bit more about that later on. So it's a delight for me to share these saxophones with you, and hopefully it'll give you some ideas of something you could upgrade to. And that's my next point. So who is going to be buying this saxophone? Well, I imagine if you've just started a saxophone, you've been playing for maybe 6 months to a year, and you're ready to upgrade to something that gives you a bit more freedom in your sound, then you'd be looking for an intermediate or a pro level saxophone, depending on your budget. Now, in many ways, this saxophone is going to give you a lot of the benefits that a full price pro saxophone would give you, and that is a saxophone that's better made, has got better ergonomics, so the fingers feel better, and is more free blowing and has a warmer tone to it. So perhaps we should dig into those features first. So the fingering. Now I do really like the keywork on this. It's great, it's smooth, everything flows really well, and your little fingers move very well on the table keys as well. However, it's not as fast as my Dave Guadala tenor that I've been playing for 30 years. Because I've had the action lightened on that saxophone, it feels better. Also, it's not as fast as a really well set up Yanagisawa or Selmer Supreme, but you're talking about a much more expensive saxophone. Even a well set up Yamaha 82Z is probably going to feel a little bit smoother than this. So the fingers are a little bit slower, but still it's even. And I was really impressed with the fact that this saxophone was shipped to me in the UK all the way from Miami. Just in the case, it arrived, came out the box and played great. Something I'm always looking for on a mid-range saxophone is how well the little fingers feel. So moving around your left-hand little fingers between B flat, B, C and C sharp, and your right-hand fingers between low C and D sharp. And I have to say on this saxophone, it's dead easy. You can move around super smooth. There's a round front F key. I would normally expect to see a tear-shaped one, but actually it feels quite comfortable and I can move around there quite well. Now, a lot of people have been talking about these screws at the top of the neck here. I guess the logic of it here is that it's a bigger screw which adds some weight to the neck and increases the sound. I can't tell the difference if I'm honest with you, but it is very nice to use and feels very comfortable, easy to tighten up. So I do like that feature. Also, the saxophone came shipped with a really nice mouthpiece. Check this out actually, it's even got a silver cap on it. So this is their TS4 mouthpiece and it actually plays really, really well too. For today's test though, just to keep things really simple, I'm playing a Jody Jazz Custom Dark and it's in a 7-tip opening. Now I'm using a Leger 2.25 reed. That's a really soft reed, isn't it? And normally I would use a 2.5 or a 2.75. So one of the things I did notice with this saxophone is that there's quite a lot more back pressure at least than on my Dave Guadala tenor. So it's not quite as free blowing as I've heard other people comment on this saxophone. That's not necessarily an issue. Some people prefer saxophones that are less free blowing, I suppose. For me, it's just meant that I've had to adjust my mouthpiece and reed setup in order to get to a stage where I feel really relaxed when I'm playing on it. So what's most important with every saxophone is that you really take the time to find the setup that's going to work for you to get the sound and feel that you're looking for. Now another thing I've been really impressed with is the case that comes with this saxophone. It's a big, rectangular square case, but I have to say it's super strong. It's got an ABS shell inside it, so it's safe and you could travel anywhere with this saxophone. Also check it out, you've got handy shoulder straps on the back and a massive pocket on the front to stick your music and your stand and all your other bits and bobs. Also inside the case you've got a neck strap, a cleaning cloth, it comes with a reed even, so you've got everything that you need to get started. Good job. Now I've been playing this saxophone over the past couple of months, if I'm honest with you, on and off for saxophone lessons and just for my general practice. I've really gotten used to it. I like the versatility of the sound. It's a bit brighter for me than my Dave Guadala tenor that I normally play, but it's still got a lovely character to the sound. And with this mouthpiece and reed setup, I can get a nice warm sound right down low, but I can also get right up into the altissimo. Yeah, it just pops out up the top there. Sounds really nice. The overtones work really well too. And I can also get a good funky bright sound. Like if I wanted to play a pop solo, let's say, I still think it sounds really, really great. Check this out. But there are a couple of things that I'm not so happy with, so let's dig into those. So first of all, I've noticed on this particular saxophone, and it's probably just the way this saxophone was set up, but my front E isn't great with the tuning. Now the front F's okay, but the front E is super sharp. I think that'd be an easy thing to get fixed with a repairer, but it's something that's annoyed me a little bit on this particular one. In contrast to all the rest of the keywork, which actually sounds great, and I've heard other people play on other TS 860s and then not have this problem. So it's probably just something with a specific saxophone. A lot of people have talked about the blue sparkly pearls. They're not my favorite, but I don't hate them. And they actually feel pretty good under your fingers. So perhaps it's like a Marmite thing. You either love it or you hate it. Now initially when I got the sax out the case, I really loved that metal key touch on the left hand thumb. Thing is though, with this saxophone, as you play, it starts to get wet and maybe sometimes your hands aren't completely clean. It makes it very slippery on that thumb rest and it kind of bugs me. Another thing that's always felt a little bit uncomfortable for me is this right hand thumb hook. It's quite deep. It's very hooky hook, if you know what I mean. And so it really grabs your right thumb when it's in there. Even with the neck strap at a comfy position for me, I feel like it puts quite a lot of pressure on the top of my thumb. So yeah, I don't know. I'd rather something that was a bit more open. It's a really minor point. But for a pro tenor sax at $2,200 American dollars, I mean, there's not much to complain about, is it? Sounds fantastic. Let's talk about the things I do like about this saxophone. I definitely do like the sound. It's brighter than my Guadala, but if you're looking for a brighter saxophone, particularly in this silver finish, perhaps you're playing in a concert band setting or you're playing in pub band type setting or a funk, rock, heavy blues, that kind of thing, you'll love the brightness of this saxophone. Really got some punch to it, and with the right mouthpiece setup, you can also darken that down. The other thing I really like about it is the look. I think it looks great. It looks a bit different, a bit special. It's got a bit of sparkle to it, and I really like that. So who's this saxophone for? Well, if you're looking for an upgrade from an entry-level saxophone, a beginner saxophone, to something a bit more advanced, but you haven't quite got the budget to stretch all the way up to the big 5 brands like Yamaha, Yanagisawa, Selmer, etc., then this is definitely something worth considering. Now, I've given this saxophone a really good play over the last couple of months, and it's held up great. And the alto I've had for maybe a year now, that's still looking great too and playing well. If anything, this tenor is playing better now after a couple of months than when it first came out of the box, and it played great then. Now, I'm not sure any saxophone in this price range is going to be a good investment. You're certainly not going to make money by holding the saxophone for 5 years and selling it, but what you will do is get a great playing saxophone that's not going to cost you a fortune, so it's definitely worth considering. Alternatives you might look at instead of getting this saxophone though, well, don't forget that you can also look at a used pro level saxophone. They're always a great option, particularly if you've got a good repairer near you. Most problems on a well-made saxophone can get sorted by a repairer. So you might find that you could get an older Selmer, Yamaha, Yanagisawa saxophone for similar money to what you might pay for this. If that's your jam, then that's another thing to consider. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the company behind these. Something that really impressed me with John Paul as a brand is that, like lots of people, they're making Chinese saxophones, but they take every saxophone through their workshop in Miami before they send them out to the customer. So that's the first thing. Everything's really well set up before it comes out to you. And that's really important because that setup process is where you take a saxophone that might be, with a couple of problems, sorts them all out, makes it into a saxophone that plays great. The setup is everything. Now, in my experience, the saxophones that they've sent me here in the UK have all arrived playing great. And the students that we have in Sax School who play their saxophones have reported back the same thing. But if there ever is a problem, then they will help you to get it sorted, whether that's in America or whatever country that you live in. Now, if you want to find out a bit more about John Paul as a company, I did a podcast interview with Tim from John Paul, and he talked more about sort of their whole ethos of trying to provide saxophones to people at an affordable price to get more people playing saxophone, and I like that whole idea. Check out the podcast, the link's down below. So don't forget to go grab that 14-day trial to Sax School if you want to see how our amazing support and lessons can help you progress on saxophone. The link's down below. But for now, go check out these other reviews of other saxophones you might want to consider. I hope they help you. I'll catch you soon.